This money could have been set aside for that kid's education for life, and you wasted it.
Or you could have bought a house for the kids.
You could have bought something as one child, and they're fighting. You can't do some. You couldn't do something better than I could do, and so unless there's a really, really unique legal aspect to the law, parties need to grow up and reach a settlement that they can do, and that's the hard fight: is overcoming the biases of individual parents, their expectations of what they think is,
Well, I think that it's hard to hear something like grow up when you're going through this horrible divorce and you're dealing with stuff that other people don't understand because they haven't gone through it. But you're right. It comes to a point where people do kind of get what I call the Don Quixote syndrome. And I was there myself at the start of my divorce. I was so mad. I was mad at everybody. I wanted to tilt at the windmills. And then I finally realized, I'm just mad because my entire world, the rug got pulled out from under me. I'm not going to go fight ORS and DCFS and say that the whole system's a mess. And I mean, it didn't last long for me, but I basically was like, okay, I've got to really come back down to what do I really care about. And all I really ever cared about was, equal access to my child. Is he safe? Does he have a roof over his head? And so those things are what really matter. But you get caught up in it, and it's hard to hear that stuff. But I think the court, I can't speak for the court, but I think that's kind of what the court feels. I get the feeling when I'm sitting in court cases, even as a legal assistant, that the court's just like, man, can't these people get along? Why can't they stop fighting?
They're constantly getting on their soapbox. When people have high conflict, they're telling them to stop fighting because it's hurting the kids. And so I understand people are hurt, and that is true. And so my job often is counseling those issues, and people want instantaneous relief on things, and I can't do that. I mean, the courts are slow process. They need to really consider the best interest of things and the legal procedures, and when you're dealing with government agencies that are involved in this, whether they are DCFS or ORS or whatever, they're doing the best that they have, and they have limited their restrictions because they're the government and they can't do things here and there. But when we're dealing with every little aspect of this, are there biases of people? Possibly. I mean, I've read other articles out there that talk about DCFS and how there's potential bias when a female caseworker is interviewing a male, and just was an article in Desert News, I thought, and I thought it was interesting that those things may exist within governments or people, their own potential biases, because that's what they perceive or their own history. And I mean, I read a book a long time ago from a judge in California that says that you can't expect people not to be biased because they're taking their own perspective and their own history.
You've got your own history, your own, like you've learned in the past. For example, let's say, every time you touch a stove, you get burned. You're going to learn that things are painful. You're going to learn certain situations aren't pleasant, or certain aspects of your life are things you don't like. Or, for example, if somebody gets attacked as a young child, by somebody with a mustache, then mustaches freak them out. And people with mustaches, whether, it may not be fair or not, but they've got that aversion. I was attacked by a dog when I was a little boy, and I got the scar right there. I'm not afraid of dogs because I just, I knew it wasn't just I knew that it wasn't all dogs were bad. That one dog bit a lot of people and got shot. But, I think that I would have some sort of bias, and that's where that stuff comes from. You'd see a dog and, oh, you're real nervous. I learned to get over it because of that right off the bat. So,
but I mean, all these aspects. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, these are the hardest types of cases because we're dealing with people's really high emotions. Because what's the most important thing is people is their family, their kids, and then their money, their limited money they have. Those are the most things that they're mostly connected to. I mean, I don't do banking law, but two banks get together and they fight it out, and money's exchanged, and they go home. Right. No one's life is utterly changed. I mean, that's what the difficult thing is we go to courts, and suddenly a child is being ordered to sleep at a certain house more times than not, and it's just hard. It's hard for people, and the courts are doing the best they can, but they have 7, 8, 9 cases a day 5 days a week on this family
They
law
got to
stuff.
try to make the best call for the situation that they can.
They got about 15 minutes for this case on temporary orders, and they're trying to do their best
Right.
when they hear everything all the time.
Sure.
And so they're doing their best, and they just want to, again, avoid conflict and get the kids in a stable place.
Mhm.
And so it's working in those aspects. It's that drama that I enjoy working with, and I enjoy helping parents and mothers and fathers get through that drama, because they each have their own different perspectives they're dealing with, and
Sure.
it's helping them and trying to create that peace so that they can get to the point
Yeah.
where they're not fighting. And that's our ultimate goal as an advocate for a parent, is to try to get them to the point
Sure.
where they're not constantly want to litigate. There's a book.
Not just get everything, all the ducks in a row and all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, so that your decree is there and you can finalize the divorce, but also to say, look, you've got your closure, you both have moved on, maybe they remarry, maybe they don't, but you've separated and you're still going to co-parent this child, and that's what you come together. And I've always referred to it as treating it like a business. I mean,
Right.
you just act like.
I was going to mention that people do that, and I don't like that at all,
Yeah.
because you don't.
Well, the
Your
main thing
business,
that-
your business isn't your family.
Sure, it's not
you
your
don't
child.
have that emotional
Sure,
connection.
sure.
You break a business, you partner up, you
Sure.
separate your assets, you move on. But you
Right.
can't have a business relationship with your
No,
ex.
sure.
It just doesn't work.
No, but what I meant by that is that you've got to maintain that professionalism. You've got to take out the emotion that would otherwise cause that conflict. Even though it is your children,
Right.
you've got to say, we are partners. That's what I meant
Right.
the analogy of business. It's not exactly the same, because obviously it's your children. It is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing to you in your life. So you're going to have that emotion, but you've got to kind of compartmentalize it and say, I cannot let my emotions override what is really important for my child.
Great.
And treat it.
And-
Yeah.
and, I mean, I was going to mention that
Sure, yeah.
there's a commissioner. He's up in Farmington. He's retiring.
Mhm.
Did a great job up there.
Mhm.
He always talked about. He had a book that he always would require parents to read
Mhm.
if they're going to have joint custody.
Just Dylan.
Commissioner Dillon,
Uh-huh.
and he's retiring in a few days.
Mhm.
Did a great job. Hopefully, T.R. Morgan will do a great job.
Mhm.
Confidence in him. He was the best pick. The Co-Parenting Survival Guide.
Okay.
And in that book, key aspect that I got
Mhm.
was, once you're divorced, don't
Mhm.
try to maintain the litigation.
Right.
So many parents are like keeping entries, like, oh, they're 15 minutes late
Sure.
here.
Right.
They're building their next litigation.
Yeah.
Now, while as an attorney,
Sure.
it's important to have
It's
that.
okay to document it in the event that there's a problem, but it's almost like if you're documenting and you're being so crucial about it, you are sort of building a case, and mentally it's going to affect you, like you're just creating that contention.
And that's a problem.
Right.
It's a double-edged sword. As an attorney, someone comes in and says, hey, I want to change custody. I say, hey, what has been the past? Tell me all the problems.
Right.
But
Show
the
me
book's
proof.
like saying, well, you got to
Let
let
it go.
things go
Right, sure.
and not constantly building your next litigation. Now, if someone's 15 minutes late, no big deal.
Yeah.
And if you need to adapt, there's probably, what happened? It's doing that. That's why it's not a business. It's your,
Right.
it's your
Sure.
ex.
Sure.
It's the child's mother.
Sure.
And
You co-created a
you
person.
co-create this person,
Right.
and you have to continue to co-parent. Now, it's
Sure.
really hard
Yeah.
to co-parent
Sure.
when you're in different homes.
Yeah.
The phrase I use, it's hard to do that because there's no makeup sex.
Right.
You're no longer in the same home. You can't lay down in the bed together, discuss an issue, ask for forgiveness,
Right.
and move on.
But for some people that's good, because
But that's
that it isn't there.
it's good. That's good because then you're always falling back in the same habits.
Right.
But there's not that aspect. That's why
We don't have the we got in an argument, but now we're gonna get over it and go to dinner, or I'm gonna get you flowers, or you're gonna bring me my favorite drink.
But those are okay too, because that's ways to move on. But if you're not moving on, you're always building things up. You're having problems.
Sure.
And so it's all these aspects of trying to say, we're going to co-parents. We have to communicate well.
Yeah.
We have to respect each other. Things. We're not going to just at the last minute change this and do this and presume you can do something and tell the kids that
Without letting me know.
without letting me
because-
know, and this is those are the challenges that people that are hard that the court can't litigate. They
Right.
can't really order parties to
Right.
behave because both parents usually aren't behaving, and they're going to, but those are the aspects that are true, that cases come back and the child custody evaluator looks at which parent is truly the co-parent.
Right.
Which parent is just
really the one trying to resolve
problems,
Sure.
not
Versus
involve the kids
Right.
in the problems to avoid conflict.
Right.
Those are the parents that they're wanting to say, this is the parent that's going
This
to
is
be
the
better.
person that needs to be the leader, right? Sure.
So that's a challenge
Sure.
that helping parents is to say, you gotta recognize this. You have to avoid this. They have hot buttons. They're gonna try to push it.
Sure.
And everybody's communicating via text now.
Yeah.
You have to realize the court is gonna read everything. Therefore, you need to always
Keep your wits about
keep your
you.
wits about
Be
it.
nice.
Keep their hand. Never swear. Never accuse. Never insult them.
Right.
If they're doing it to you, take it
Yeah.
and don't respond.
Right.
You know that case.
Don't engage in it. And just say, look, when you're not upset, I'm here. If
I want to
can see you're
resolve.
upset. Yeah.
I had cases where the father had divorce decree awarded 50-50. Dad had sole custody for a year, 2 years.
Mhm.
Young child. Mom took minimum.
Right.
We go back to court and said, hey, they've had sole custody for 2 years. Dad should have custody. Mom shows up to court with 1,000 text messages between the two of them over 2 years, where he's insulting her and belittling her, swearing at her, and they're like, because of this, I'm not doing it.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, you gotta think.
Right.
And so that's why all this stuff.
Whether it was justified or not, they're going to see the side where he's acting like a jerk. They might not see the phone call before where she insulted him. Right.
Right.
All you got is, here's the snapshot that we've got, and we can't in good conscience ignore the bad behavior here. Even if it's not the whole picture, this is what we know, sort of thing.
So those are things that a parent needs to understand is
Yeah.
you have to just control your anger. You have to realize, but it's hard because you're dealing with a child and
Right.
a child's taken away from you and you're not having that, or you're being disrespected because that parent is not informing you of stuff.
Right.
They're not telling you when the school parent-teacher conference is, and
Sure.
and it's like, they're never involved.
Sure.
You didn't tell me.
Sure.
And like, well, you should have just logged on to school. Like, well,
Right, and I think some of the things that should be avoided when you're having an argument. You don't to take the position that, well, I'm such and such, I'm the custodial, and you're just the non-custodial. That just causes all kinds of problems because you're like, look, we created this child together. We are both important to this child, and the child will tell you if you can't understand that. The child will tell you, I love my dad or I love my mom, and it's. And if you're tearing down mom whenever you've got the child, you're tearing down a part of that child. You really are.
Yeah.
Because he loves the mom, and he's always going to love the mom, or vice versa. If mom's tearing down dad, the child's going to love his dad. So when I hear some of the things that people fight over, and I know some of the struggles I had on the onset was, I always felt like, and I know it was just in my own mind, I didn't need to view it that way, but I always felt like when I was informing her of this or that, or I've got this coming up, and so I need to switch the schedule a little because, it was always kind of humiliating for me to ask permission to see my own child or to switch the schedule. And so I had to kind of get over that and go, if the shoe was on the other foot, if she had something come up, I want her to feel like she can come to me and say, this has come up, I've got a wedding or whatever. These things that aren't going to happen. The schedules aren't perfect. Things are going to happen. There's going to be funerals. There's going to be weddings. There's going to be once-in-a-lifetime things that you need to go to. And you're going to have to say, the guide doesn't work for us. We've got to depart from it a little here, and let's work this out.
Well, the law does encourage you to do those things because they want you to live the golden rule.
Right.
I mean, we attorneys draft these parenting plans,
Sure.
and I have a very detailed one because every single paragraph is needed because it's a case that I had to fight over on that issue. But if you could summarize it, we're going to live the golden rule.
Yeah.
We're going to respect each other. We're going to treat each other with
We want
kindness.
to be treated, sure.
And if things come up, we're going to adapt. And
Right.
the problem is, it comes down to is like, well, I'm not going to allow that because I just need that control.
Right.
And that's where things need to be eliminated.
Right.
Now, but at the same time, there needs to be some type of decision.
Sure.
A kid needs to go to school and they're both fighting over school. We got to get this resolved because the judge is not going to want to order which school to go to when they're both good schools.
Right.
It's just the parents need to realize that fighting is only hurting these kids. And Commissioner Patton and Provo always give the same spiel about